Every guitar player fears two things: sounding boring and being put in any kind of position where you have to read sheet music. Luckily, I'm here to help you with the first part, definitely not the second part. So I was playing the show last night with my friend Gracie, and somebody requested one of her original songs. And she wanted to play one that I wasn't familiar with. So she was like, oh, it's just A to B minor. And she kind of gave me the beat like, you know, A, B minor. I'm like, I can do that. She's like, A, B minor. And I'm like, okay, what's the next part? Oh, that's the only part. How long is it? Oh, it's 4 verses and 6 choruses. I'm like, oh, so I guess I'm just doing this for 6 minutes then, right? So we're gonna talk about what I did that I kind of impressed myself, no big deal. And to talk about some tips on how to sound maybe less boring. Take some basic chords, 1 major chord, 1 minor chord, mixing it up, and then doing some cool things with it, all right? So let's start with the A major, all right? A lot of these tips are gonna be something specifically to A major, but you can always use the capo to kind of move them around to help the open strings help you out with what you're doing, right? First thing that you can do with the A major is play this A major as not a replacement, but to go back and forth between them, right? So again, it's basically an F-shaped chord, but in A major's bar chord spot. So I've got open A, 7 on the D string with my ring finger, staircased up 7, 6, 5, D, G, B. And then we still have the E and the A, and then open E down low, right? All those notes are in the chord, so. And it just kind of gives a little bit of a variety instead of just staying in one position. You can go back and forth between them. And then we'll have an alternate voicing for the B minor, so you can go back and forth between them, right? So again, we're gonna do a lot of different things, but this is just gonna be the first one, right? So A major here, and then utilize a different voicing to go back and forth between. And again, it's not really that hard to do. Just really take your time and drill that back and forth. Then B minor, right? Here's regular B minor. I'm just kind of barring the 2nd fret. Pointer finger 2 A, ring finger pinky 4, 4, D and G, middle finger 3, B. Tried and true, B minor 11. The great thing is, for this switch, you can keep your ring finger and your pinky bunched together, and then just go down to a B minor 11 chord. Minor 11 chords will always work as a substitution for any minor chord that you'll come across, right? So now I've got my middle finger on the low E string, B, 7th fret, and then 7, 7, D and G, and then 5 on the B string. Or B minor 11, where it's just basically the 7th fret without the A string, right? So now instead of A to B minor, we can go A. Especially in an acoustic guitar accompaniment type deal, you have those big open strings that help you in that transition in a way that I think actually rings out a little more between this chord voicing. Usually when you switch from an A major here to here, a lot of times you kind of lose some of those open strings in the transfer, right? But no matter how you do it, these open strings sound amazing, not only because I'm playing a Martin guitar, but because this video is sponsored by Elixir strings, all right? Elixir's been a huge endorser of mine, and I always use the NanoWeb 12s, the 8020 bronze ones. Again, I think these last the longest and sound the best. Huge fan of Elixir strings. So definitely get yourself a pack of Elixirs in the affiliate link description below if you like the video and learn something from it. Because they're huge supporters of mine, and I use them for all my gigs. They last long, and they sound super balanced. Love them, right? So that's just the first thing. It's just maybe an alternate chord voicing that you haven't used before that you can always swap out. Learn one for the major ones, one for the minor ones. You could also make it kind of easy up here. This is basically an A minor chord, 2 frets higher, playing essentially a B minor chord, even though I still have that open A and E ringing out. That sounds kind of like a... But we have the open A gluing it together to get us back here. So this is why you learn different chord voicings, because you can kind of jump around in between them, right? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do some, I don't know, pentatonic, scaly, lick type stuff in between for the spot where the B minor is, right? So now we're going to go A major. Something around this spot on any of the strings, right? So minor pentatonic, I know that you guys have been jamming on the minor pentatonic forever, so let's talk about how we can use them as single notes or double stops to complement a chord that you're kind of in the middle of playing rhythmically, right? So any minor chord you can pair with a minor pentatonic scale. It doesn't always have to be the relative minor of a chord like some people think. Any of the minor chords we'll use this, right? So again, our root note is that B on the low E string, 7th fret. Okay, there's the minor pentatonic scale. 7, 10, 7, 9, 7, 9, 7, 9, 7, 10, 7, 10. Now, what I think is really cool from a rhythm guitar type standpoint is maybe focusing on the lowest 4 strings, right? Those lower strings are bigger, are meatier, especially on these the powerful Elixir 12s that I'm using, and they carry a little more weight behind a chord, right? So we could go from here, that chord, and then maybe I'm just double stopping through just the A, D, and G strings, 7, 9, 7, 9, 7, 9. So what I'm doing here is, since I already have my ring finger and my pinky together on the D and G strings, I can slide into the 9th fret, again, from that minor pentatonic shape, and then go back to my pointer finger to bar those same 2. So I'm getting 9D and 9G, then 7D and 7G, and then I'm doing the exact same thing, a string lower. And then open it up to A. It's the beautiful thing about this position on the guitar neck is you can kind of just abandon ship and get back. There's an infinite amount of things that you could do thinking of just these 4 little 2-note double stops, dyads, whatever you want to call them. Doesn't really matter. You can do them with 2 fingers. Whatever's the easiest way for you to get in and out of them. I think there's a lot of utility in that. Also, just like little lick, hammer-on, pull-off type stuff that like Jack Johnson's famous for, right? Maybe something like that. I'm really just getting like a hammer-on the A string 7 to 9, and then getting the D string 7. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, B, 2, 3, 4. So those are just things that you can do on that B minor part of the back end of that phrase, right? Now maybe you don't want to do that because it sounds too busy if there's a vocal melody present. In the case of this song, and a lot of songs, usually the back end of a bar, there's space where the vocals kind of like aren't doing a whole lot. Maybe there's no actual vocal melody at all. That's your time to shine. Let it all hang out, right? Let's do something a little bit to inflect that A major chord too, right? So now we'll do that same thing, but let's talk about the different available things, maybe like a little Hendrixy. It's still kind of like a double stop thing. There's still double stops, but basically just the notes that are available from this position. We're using the pinky as a free agent, getting the B string right there, 7 to 5, and then the G string, 7 to 6, right? And you can add the entire chord. It doesn't have to be a double stop. It can be the whole chord. right? Always sounds really good. And because the melody is on top, the chord melody. In fact, in this time, I'm not even hitting the high E string because I want to. And when I say I'm not hitting it, actually what I'm doing is I'm muting it with my pointer finger. Right? Because my pointer finger is holding down that E on the B string. So I don't need 2 E's, right? Oh, perfectly in tune. Martin guitars, Elixir strings. Unbelievable, right? So I can kind of just hold that down so I'm only hearing 1. That way, I'm getting that melody on top. It kind of makes it stand out a little bit more, right? A. And then you get that little call and response. See how, like, from the A's part, it's... And then from the B's part, or... I'm just kind of mirroring what I'm doing over the major chord, and then doing something in the same rhythmic pattern for the next chord. And that kind of brings it together in a way that I find isn't as distracting as maybe just kind of like going off into some kind of like, you know, jazz fusion tangent on a chord. Because again, this isn't really difficult. This is more of just accompaniment tips to not sound boring over just a single chord, right? Now, another thing that I think is really underutilized by a lot of acoustic players, a lot of accompanying players, is really using your dynamics in a very controlled way. And the best way to do that isn't actually hitting the strings harder or softer, it's using your palm to mute a lot of stuff, right? I found this to be especially true as pop music has gone in a way where it's usually just like the same 3 or 4 chords repeated over and over again. That's becoming more of the norm, which is fine. But trying to find some kind of dynamic difference. Because again, it's not that pop music is like getting worse. It's just like the production components are taking over the storytelling of it. So you have to find a way to kind of do that yourself as an acoustic guitar player, right? So maybe for the verses, let's bring the volume down, or maybe change the rhythm, how you're attacking it, how you're using your dynamics. So maybe if the main part of the song is this, maybe this is like the exciting part of the song, then you want to go down. Something like that, right? All I'm doing is I'm taking my palm, judo chopping the bridge, and then using a dynamic picking technique to really kind of mute, but still get some action going on, right? So 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and... So it's not that I'm doing less, I'm just really tightening it up. What I found is like keeping the beat is important if you're just doing an acoustic guitar accompaniment type thing. So it's still fairly busy, right? 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, down, 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 up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And you'll see I'm working through the string set. You can hear which strings I'm getting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, 4. You'll notice the 1 is always going to be the lower things, like where a kick drum might be in a mix. And the 3 is going to be the higher strings because it has more of that snare percussive. Get that backbeat. Maybe a little chromatic walk to connect them. 5, 5, 6, 7, A sharp B. Then you even have a place to get bigger. Know where all the other A's are on the fretboard. And again, that's a B minor with an A on top. I know you've probably played that actually. I think that's essentially what a B minor 7 is. but with the A on top. Really pretty song, right? So again, just really a very real-life practical example of why it's really important to know all these different things, whether they're just different notes from scales where that minor pentatonic helps out in a way where you're not just doing like blues licks. Because that's kind of how I always thought of minor pentatonic at first. It's like, okay, cool, these are great for blues licks, but they're not really helping me from, you know, a singer-songwriter standpoint. Totally false. The minor pentatonic is always your best friend because you can kind of like repeat stuff, right? Let's actually add another chord to this. Let's go A minor, B minor, C sharp minor. Back to B minor, right? Now I'm just adding that 9th fret and doing everything I was doing on the 7th fret, right? So we can go. And then the tried and true tip to end it by just going a full octave higher from where you started. Beautiful in A major because you can just go to the 14th fret, take that A major chord all the way. Plenty of room even without a cutaway on a Martin D35. And then end it. That's another pro tip, right? Have a big glorious ending and then a really like sad. Gets a laugh for the live shows. So anyways, thanks very much for watching the videos. Thanks to Elixir for sponsoring it. Like I said, affiliate link in the description. If you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, or the website. I'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks so much.